Hello everyone, my name is Claudius Cazan. In this video we continue talking about seventh chords. Last time we took a look for the first time at the inversions and the qualities of the seventh chords. Now we're going to build seventh chords on the major and the three forms of the minor scale. We also do a couple of exercises by scoring seventh chords into four parts. I will perform for you Solfege number 32 and from Robert Starr's Rhythmic Training book, exercise number 34. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. Last time we talked for the first time about seventh chords, and we looked at their qualities and their inversions. Let's quickly recapitulate what we talked about last time. We're not going to spend too much time because you can always go to the last video if you need more information about that in detail. But we talked about the most widely used seventh chords in classical music. And those are the major seventh chord, the minor seventh chord, the dominant seventh chord, and the two forms of the diminished, the fully diminished and the half diminished. Those five different seventh chords is something that you really need to remember. Those are the mostly widely found seventh chords in classical music. We also talked about the inversions of the seventh chords, and we came up with a pretty easy formula. If you're talking about a seventh chord in root position, the number that goes underneath, the figure as we call it, it's 7. If it's in first inversion, 6-5. If it's in second inversion, 4-3. If it's in third inversion, 4-2 or just the 2. I like the 4-2 because it's a little more descriptive, tells a little more about the intervals involved in there. So I'll use the 4-2 from now on instead of just the 2. So 7, 6-5, 4-3, 2. Okay? Let's take a look at my tablet right now. You can see in the key of C, and I like to pick on the key of C because it has no sharps or flats, so we don't have to calculate too much. Okay? And I built seventh chords on each scale degree. Now notice one thing in there. On the first row, you see the 1, 2, 3s. The 1, the 4, and the 5 are major. Except for the 5. The 5 in there, it's not major. It has a D underneath, which means a dominant seventh chord. Remember, the dominant seventh chord is a peculiar one because it's made out of a major triad on the bottom with a minor seventh, okay, between the root and the seventh. Okay, that's a dominant seventh chord. The 1, the 4 are major, meaning that they have a triad, the major triad on the bottom, with a major seventh on top. Okay, sounds a little dissonant, and same it is for the one on the 4th degree. Okay, but the one on the 5, it's a dominant seventh chord, and it's called a dominant because it's found on the 5th degree, okay, of every major and some minor forms as well, as we'll see a little later. But the 5th degree is also called the dominant, if you remember from prior videos. That's why it's called a dominant seventh chord. Okay, the ones on 2, 3, and 6 are minor seventh chords, and they sound minor. It's based on the minor triad with a minor seventh chord on top. Okay, or the one on the 3, or the one on the 6. Okay, same kind of sound, but the one on the 7th degree this time, okay? It's built on the diminished triad with a minor seventh, okay? That's called a half diminished. That's why you see the cut circle in there, okay? And this is what you'll find in the major key. The 1st, the 4th, major seventh chords, the 5th, the dominant seventh chord, and on the 2, 3, and 6, minor and a half diminished built on the 7th degree. Okay? This is purely informational. Really, doesn't mean too much in here. What's really important is the dominant seventh chord, the way we resolve it later. We'll see when we start looking at some actual harmonic progressions in 4 parts, exactly how we resolve all the elements of the dominant seventh chord. That's important. All right, let's move on now and look at the seventh chords built on the minor tonality, on minor key. And let's look at the natural form first, okay? Things are going to be a little bit different. Obviously, since it's a minor key, okay, the 1 on 1, it's going to be a minor seventh chord. Okay? Minor triad on the bottom with a minor seventh, okay? If we move on to the second one, second degree is a half diminished. See the cut circle in there. Diminished triad on the bottom with a minor seventh, okay? Moving on to the third degree, we have a major, this time major seventh chord, okay? Just like the first degree in the major tonality or major key, exactly the same. The one on the fourth degree this time is minor. Okay, and so is the one on the fifth degree. Remember, we're talking about the natural minor here. In the harmonic and the melodic, we're going to get different ones. But this time, the one on the fifth degree is minor. Okay, the one on the sixth degree is major. Okay, and very interestingly here, on the seventh degree, we get the dominant quality seventh chord in here. But that's because we're dealing with the natural minor. The natural minor does not have a leading tone, right? And sounds a little bit different because of that, okay? This is, again, purely informational. It's nice to look and see what we have. All right, let's move on to the harmonic minor. The harmonic minor is a little more animated here. We have on the first degree, if we were to keep all the accidentals here, the raised seventh degree, the leading tone, we have a minor triad on the bottom with a major seventh. We haven't seen that right now, and that's purely descriptive because, that's kind of dissonant, okay? And that's something that would probably resolve like this. Okay, so a minor on the bottom with a major seventh. That's why I notated there with a lowercase m, but I put a sharp 7, meaning a raised seventh. And because the actual accidental that we use, it's the sharp, I put the sharp 7 in there. Purely kind of descriptive. It's not one of those seventh chords that we talked about before. And it's only found here in the harmonic minor on the first degree. Let's move on to the second degree. Second degree is the half diminished. We've seen that also on the natural form. But now, this time, on the third degree, we have an augmented one. Okay? Augmented triad on the bottom with a major seventh. That's called the augmented seventh chord. All right, let's move on to the fourth degree. It's minor, just like before in the natural form. And this time, guess what? On the fifth degree, we actually get our dominant seventh chord. Why? Because we have a raised seventh degree, and that's the third of the chord in here, that G sharp. Oh, okay. That's why we need that raised seventh degree. So we end up with a dominant seventh chord that we can nicely resolve to the first degree, which is a minor. Okay, moving on to the sixth degree. That's our major seventh chord. All right, we saw that in the natural form as well. But now look at this, G sharp, B, D, F on the seventh degree. We haven't seen this before. This is the fully diminished seventh chord. Diminished triad on the bottom with the diminished seventh. Okay, so fully diminished because both elements, the triad and the seventh, are diminished. All right, let's move on to the melodic form. The melodic form has a lot of elements in common with the harmonic. And the first one is one example of that. That descriptive minor with a major seventh. Okay, and then this one's different than the harmonic. We have a minor, just a regular minor seventh chord on the second degree. We still keep the augmented on the third degree. Okay, very dissonant. But look at this. This time we have two dominant seventh chords. One on the fourth degree, okay, and another one on the fifth degree, okay. Interesting. The sixth degree has a half diminished, okay, that diminished triad with a minor seventh. And also on the seventh degree, we have exactly the same. We have a half diminished, okay, diminished triad with a minor seventh, okay. So kind of disappointing because I would have liked to see that fully diminished in there, but it doesn't happen in the melodic. It only happens in the harmonic form of the minor. On the seventh degree, we get that fully diminished seventh chord. All right, so there you have it. You can see now exactly how those qualities of the seventh chords play a role here in these different forms of the minor and the major key. All right, let's move on and do some exercises with seventh chords. The first one here, let's score this particular seventh chord. F sharp, A, C, E flat. Okay, let's look at it and let's put a label on it quality-wise. F sharp, A, C, the triad on the bottom is a diminished triad because it's made out of minor thirds stacked on top of each other. And F sharp to E flat, the seventh, between the root and the seventh, it's also diminished. So because both elements are diminished, the triad and the seventh, we call this a fully diminished seventh chord. Okay? Now, what do we do when we need to score this? First of all, you're going to be given the inversion that you need to score. Okay? So let's move on and see. You see on the bottom here 6-5. If you remember from last time, 6-5 means a seventh chord in first inversion. Okay? So you have the root position, and once you invert the triad, you take the root and flip it up an octave, you end up with a triad in first inversion. When you have a triad in first inversion, it means that the third of the chord is in the bass, the lowest sounding note. What is the third in this case? It's A, right? So F sharp is the root, A is the third, C is the fifth, and E flat is the seventh, okay? So in this case, since we're dealing with a first inversion seventh chord, A needs to be in the bass, okay? That's the third. So I came up with one solution in here. You know, you can come up with another solution if you want to. You know, there's many different possibilities, but this is the solution that I came up with. I took the A and I moved it to the bass. It has to be in the bass, okay? The A in the bass sounds like this, and then sounds pretty full because the voices are distributed nicely along the voice ranges, right? And it's a chord in open position, meaning that we could fit other chord notes between the upper three voices, right? And this is one possibility, okay? What's the most important thing in here? It's the third in the bass. Okay, that A in the original chord, when you stack the chords in the chord in thirds, that A needs to move to the bass. Now, it doesn't matter that it's this A, could have been this A, okay, and then the other notes would have been spaced differently, but A needs to be the lowest sounding note. That's the most important, okay? Now, you can work the 6 and the 5 if you want. A to F sharp, A to F sharp. It's your 6, okay? A to C, okay? Even though it's a third above the octave, but we reduce all these compound intervals to simple intervals. A to C is a third. The third doesn't get notated. It's taken for granted in here, remember? But A to E flat is your 5th. It's not a perfect 5th, but it's still a 5th. That's why 6-5 is the combination of numbers, unique combination of numbers that we could use to represent a 7th chord in first inversion. Okay, let's move on. Let's score it in a different way now. Same triad, same 7th chord, I'm sorry, scored in inversion 4-2. Remember 4-2 or just 2 is the 3rd inversion. Important again is what goes in the bass. Okay? What note needs to go in the bass here? It's your 7th. The E flat that's in the top of the original 7th chord arranged in root position, that 7th, the E flat, needs to move to the bass in order to have a 7th chord in 3rd inversion. And this is the solution that I came up with. You can follow the red arrow. I took that E flat from the top and moved it in the bass. Okay, and I came up with this. Okay, I have all the elements of the 7th chord. They're all in there, nothing is missing. This is a 7th chord in closed position. Why? Because these upper 3 voices, the C, F sharp, and A, okay, I cannot fit any other chord notes between those 3 upper voices, all right? So there is a little bit of a gap between the bass and the tenor, but the tenor, alto, and the soprano are closed, all right? I cannot fit any other chord notes belonging to that chord between those 3 upper voices, okay? You can stop the video and you can study it if you want, but the most important thing in here, again, is that the 7th of the chord has moved to the bass, okay? Of course, I have to, keep all the other rules alive, meaning that no more than 1 octave between the upper 3 voices. I have to make sure that all voices are within the voice ranges. I don't want to have any voices screaming outside the ranges or bass too low or anything like that. So that's really important. Okay, let's move on to the last one with this particular 7th chord. And there's a 7 in there. Remember, a 7 by itself means the 7th chord in root position. So it's easy because I know what needs to go in the root. That's F sharp, all right? So this is the solution that I came up with. You can follow the arrow again. F sharp stays in the bass, the lowest sounding note, and this is what it sounds like. F sharp, C, A, E flat. You can also see this is an open position, right? I can fit chord notes between the upper 3 voices. For example, I could fit an E flat between the tenor and the alto, and a C between the alto and the soprano, okay? And again, the distance between the tenor and the bass does not matter too much. I could have moved that F sharp all the way an octave lower, okay? And it would still have been okay, even though F sharp is a little bit extreme for the basses. If you have good basses, you can go much lower than that. But remember, G is kind of like the lowest note that you want to give to the basses. If you have good basses, you can go as far down as D or even C. All right, so you can pause the video here and study this particular inversion in here. In root position, F sharp stays in the bass because that's the root of the chord, and I space the other notes properly. Again, these are not the only solutions. These are just, examples for you guys to study. I'm sure you can come up with a number of solutions in here, and they will all be correct. So that's fine. All right, let's look at another one. B flat, D, F, A flat. Just by the sound of it, I know this is a dominant 7th chord. Why? Major triad with a minor 7th. That's the formula for a dominant 7th chord. All right, let's look at the first exercise here. A 4-3. A 4-3, it's a 7th chord in 2nd inversion. What needs to go in the bass? It needs, the 5th of the chord needs to go in the bass. If you look in the original chord here, the 5th is F. Okay, so this is the solution that I came up with. F is in the bass. Okay, and then I space the other notes properly from there. And things sound like this. Okay. Again, this is an open 7th chord because I can fit another F between the soprano and the alto. Okay, so if you can fit another chord tone between anywhere between the upper 3 voices, you're talking about an open position. Okay, even if the other ones are closed. All right, so again, you can pause the video, look at this, and see how I scored. What's the most important thing in here? It's that F is in the bass. That's the 5th. So in a 2nd inversion 7th chord, the 5th needs to be in the bass. Okay, good. Let's look at another one. Same chord, okay, but this time I'm restricting you even more. Okay, yes, I want a 7th chord in root position, that's why the 7, but I want you to put it in closed position. Okay, so you don't have as much freedom as before. Now I'm kind of restricting you. What does that mean, closed? That means that the upper 3 voices have to be kind of grouped together. Okay, no other chord tones are allowed to be placed in between what you come up with in there. Okay, so group the 3 upper voices together, and it doesn't really matter what you have between the tenor and the bass. Okay, and this is the solution that I came up with. Of course, because it's a root position, B flat needs to be in the bass, right? That's the root of the chord. And because of that, I grouped the tenor, alto, and soprano together. And you can see there's a gap. There's a gap of a 1/10 between the tenor and the bass. But that's perfectly okay because we can have that gap between the bass and the tenor. All right. Again, stop the video if you want and analyze this. Look to make sure that you understand what's going on. This is, again, not the only solution. This is just an example. Let's look at one more. A 6-5, an open position. 6-5 means first inversion. What needs to go in the bass? The 3rd. What's the 3rd in our case here? The D. Okay? And it has to be open, as you can see. So here's my solution in here. Of course, the D goes in the bass. That's the 3rd of the chord. And then I space the other notes openly. And it sounds like this. Why is it open and it's still okay? Because I can fit chord notes or chord tones between the alto and the tenor. Okay, I can fit another D in between there. Okay, now I wouldn't do that because I already have the D in the bass, but the rule says that if you can fit a chord tone between the upper 3 voices, you're talking about a open position. And this is legitimate open position in here. Okay, again, not the only way. You could find other open positions and still keep the D in the bass. So that's fine. Let's do one more and then we're done. Let's go with A, C sharp, E, G sharp. Let's listen to this one and let's give its quality. A, C sharp, E. It's a major triad on the bottom with a major 7th. So major, major, it's called a major 7th chord. Very popular in classical music. Okay, let's see what we're asked to be doing here. A 4-2 in closed position. 4-2, it's the 3rd inversion. What needs to go in the 3rd inversion? What needs to go in the bass? It's your 7th. In this case, G sharp. So G sharp, whether you put it all the way down here or you put it up here, still needs to be the lowest sounding note. Okay, and this is the solution that I came up with. Ah, interesting. Look at this. G sharp, A, C sharp, E, closed position. Ooh. Is it legitimate to do that? Of course it is. Okay, G sharp is still in the bass. Okay, and the other three voices are in closed position. Okay, they're clustered together in here. No other chord tones between them. What's particularly interesting in here that the bass and the tenors are so close together. Let's see. Okay, of course this is one of those chords that cries for a resolution. Probably something like this. Okay, so you can come up with all kinds of resolutions and a nice harmonic progression that incorporates this particular chord. Okay, so again, stop the video and look at it. 4-2, third inversion in closed position. Again, what's interesting is that the bass and the tenor are at a half step apart, which creates that nice tension here that needs to be resolved later on. And we'll talk a lot more about resolutions when we talk about voice leading, and we look at some chord progressions actually. We're not just going to take chords separate like we do now. Let's look at the next thing we're asked to be doing here. A 4-3 in open position. 4-3 again, it's the second inversion. What needs to go in the bass? It's the fifth, the E. All right, so E needs to go in the bass, and then space the other three voices openly on top. And this is the solution that I came up with. You can see the E moves to the bass, and I came up with this. Let's see. Okay. All right. Again, pause the video and look at it. It's open because I can fit other chord tones between the upper three voices. Okay, and what's the most important thing here? It's that the E, the fifth of the chord, is in the bass. And let's look at one more. A 6-5, which is your first inversion in closed position. Okay, what needs to go in the bass here? It's your third, C sharp. So C sharp needs to go in the bass. Okay, and this is what I came up with. C sharp in the bass. Okay, you're gonna say, whoa, this is kind of weird, but can we do something like this? Of course we can. Okay, the upper three voices, E, G sharp, and A, are clustered together. Yes, we have a dissonance there between the alto and the soprano, but that's okay. Remember, these chords are not meant to be isolated like this. They resolve, they move on to more consonant chords, okay? And the C sharp, being in the bass, can stay away from all these, okay? All right, good. And that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. Next time, I think I'm going to dive into doing some legitimate analysis of some very simple harmonic progressions. We're going to take harmonic progressions, we're going to put them in the context of the key, and we're going to analyze them. We're going to give them qualities and functions in that particular key, and we're going to start looking at voice leading. That's very, very important. Voice leading is the art of moving voices together, you know, independently of each other, and also, you know, in relation to the other, to each other. Okay, so that's very important. We're going to look at a couple more rules that we have to follow on top of the rules that we already have about voice ranges and you know, distance between voices. And so we're going to look at other rules that have now to do with motion between voices. All right, and that's we're going to start doing that next time. But armed with this information that we have right now, we can do some meaningful harmonic analysis. Okay, we're going to look at the qualities of these seventh chords and triads, not only seventh chords, but triads and seventh chords, and their inversions and how they move, how we move from one chord to the other. Okay, some very simple harmonic progression, very basic ones first, before we start doing more advanced harmonic analysis of some Bach chorales or something like that. So, very good. So that's it for today. This was a little more technical. Please make sure you understand this because it's going to be very important when we start doing more complex harmonic analysis. All right? All right, let's move on to solfege, number 32. And this is what you had to prepare for today. You had quite some time to prepare this. I haven't done a video in about almost 2 months right now. So I do feel a little better, and hopefully this shows. And let's look at solfege number 32. First of all, it's written in the key of C minor. Why do I say so? Because of the key signature, okay, and also the note at the end. We also see some B naturals. B natural is the leading tone in C minor. Right, if we're talking about the harmonic or melodic forms. And the key signature is shared between C minor and E flat major. Right, those two keys are relative keys. Remember that minor third between the two of them. All right, also it's written in 5/4, meaning 5 quarter notes in each bar, but I'm helping you with that fake dotted bar line in there to help you conduct, either on the formula of 2/3 or 3/2. Okay, so you have to be on your mark exactly how to conduct this. Look ahead of time to see if you have to conduct 2 or 3. Okay, as you go along through this. There's some leaps of octaves in here, quite difficult and so on. So there's a lot of large intervals, and so what gets you here also is going between triplets and straight eighth notes. To practice this, you should probably put the metronome at a steady tempo and try to go da 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 da, going back and forth between triplets and straight eighth notes. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for now. All right, very good. Let's give it a try. We're going to put the metronome this time a little bit slower because of all these triplets and going back and forth. I'm going to bring it down to 70, okay? So you don't have to go quite as fast as 80 or 90. I mean, you can if you really practice it and you almost memorize this. Yes, you can go fast like that, but you don't have to. So this is down at 70 right now. I'm going to use the tablet this time because it's bigger. Okay, so I'm going to hold the metronome and I'm going to go. Sol, do, re, do, si, la, sol, fa, sol, mi, re, mi, fa, re, do, si, do, mi, re. Sol, si, do, fa, la, si, do, mi, re, sol, fa, do, si, re, mi, do, sol, mi. Do, re, mi, fa, fa, sol, do, si, do, re, mi, fa, fa, sol, la, si, do, mi, re, la, sol, fa, sol, si, do, re, mi, do, si, sol, re, sol, mi, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, do, sol, fa, mi, re, sol, mi, do, si, do, mi, re, sol, fa, sol, mi, do, sol, fa, sol, sol, do, mi, sol, do, si, la, sol, fa, sol, la, sol, si, do, mi, re, sol, si, do. All right, that will have to do it. Not an easy one again. Requires a lot of practice, a lot of going back and forth to anticipate what's going on. So I doubt too many people can do this at sight. Okay, if you guys can do it at sight, you're better than I am, and kudos to you. All right, very good. So for next time, solfege number 33, I believe. Yeah, 33 and 34. Okay, we're getting close to the end of these solfeges right now, and for the level of training that I'm offering here, if you've gotten to this level with a solfege, I think it's quite remarkable. So just a few more until the end of the solfege course here. All right, let's look at Rubber Star's Rhythmic Training, exercise number 34, really quickly. This is written in 15/8. Wow, you have 15/8 notes in a measure. Now, if you look at this, again, you'll see the dotted bar line. That's just to guide you there in the conducting of it, all right? And you have to actually count 15/8 notes in there. Remember, a quarter note, it's worth 2/8 notes, and then count the other one. A dotted half note, it's worth how many eighth notes? A dotted half. That's 6/8 notes, right? 2 for each quarter note. So if you have 3 quarter notes lumped into a dotted half, that means 6/8 notes, all right? And a dotted quarter note rest, that means 3/8 notes, all right? So you can see how they add up quite quickly in there. Now, how do we conduct 15/8? According to Mr. Starr here, and according to that dotted bar line in there, you can see that in the first measure, let's look at the first measure here, okay? You have, if you group together 3/8 notes, okay? You can see in the first part of the measure, before the dotted bar line, you have basically 2 beats, okay? So group together 3/8 notes into 1 beat, and you end up with 2 beats in here. Da, 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 da. Okay, that's the first 2 beats. And then you have 2 more beats into the dotted half note, and another beat on the dotted quarter rest. So that makes 3. So what tells me in here that the first part of the measure you conduct in 2, and the second part you conduct in 3. So basically we'll go like this. Da, 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 da. Okay? So that's how you work this out. Work them out in two I would say 1 measure at a time, but is basically divided into 2 parts, okay? The one that conducts into 2 and the other one that conducts into 3. Now look at the second measure from the middle of this line on. You can see that here you have the reverse. You have a 3 conduct on the 3 and then on the 2, okay? So basically, just going from measure 3 and 4, you have ta-ta, ta-da-ta, I'm sorry, ta-ta, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Okay? That 8th note rest at the end there is just to help you breathe, basically. It's very difficult to place it exactly where it should be, but it should just help you breathe for the next measure and so on. So one more time, just those two, the 2 parts of the second measure here. Ta-ta, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Okay, and at some point at the end there, take a little bit of time off to breathe. Okay, and this is how you conduct it. Always divide it into 3. Okay, 15 divides nicely into 3. Right? There's 5. Groups of 3, and that gives you 15. If you look back at the first measure again, you can see there's 2 groups of 3, and then 3 groups of 3. That means 5. Put them all together, you get 15. That's how we conduct 15/8. All right, I'm going to put the metronome again at, let's put it still at 70. Stay with a 70 today. Even though, if you're really practiced and so on, you can go a little faster. But let's see if we can do it at 70. Ta, 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 ta. Ta, 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 ta. ta, 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 ta. Ta, 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 ta. That's it. This will have to do. Very good. For next time, let's look at exercise number 35. Only the number 35 for next time. Okay? We're getting close to learning about 16th notes here, but we're still stuck for a little bit with triplets. Okay, so exercise number 35 for next time from Robert Starr's Rhythmic Training book. Great. In my next video, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to look at some very simple harmonic progressions. We're going to do some analysis of that. Now that you're armed with the information about triads and seventh chords, I think it's time for us to start looking at simple harmonic progressions like 1 to 5, 5 to 1. And when I'm saying 1 to 5, that means the chord of the 1, the chord of the 5, and how the two of them, tie together. Voice leading between the two of them. Or the chord of the 4, 1, 4, 5, 1. Okay? These are the very, very basic harmonic progressions that you will have to know. Later on, we're going to add the chord of the 2, the chord of the 3, and so on. Okay? And finally, we'll end up taking a look at some very simple pre-Bach chorales. Okay? And we're going to try to do some harmonic analysis of those. In the process of doing this, we're going to talk about cadences. We're also going to talk about non-chord tones. Okay? We're going to put them all together, and you're going to learn a lot. All right, until next time, I want you guys to stay healthy and safe and be good.